Hey everybody, it's Dave with No Chaser, and today's topic is about dealing with regrets in recovery, clean and sober. Because amongst all the terrible, terrible things that drugs and alcohol does, one reason why we did it is because it helps block out painful feelings, emotions, memories, thoughts. And now that you're clean and sober, woohoo, all that's gonna be coming back. You have the full clarity of mind, and there's no blocking agent or anything that you have to just make it go away. I mean, you can try to repress it. That does not turn out well. Oh, by the way, you like this little setup here? Doesn't it? I kind of feel like Matthew McConaughey in those Lincoln commercials. You're talking about life and regrets, and you get in like a reflective mood. And also, I can't really film where I'm at right now. And I wanted to do this one because this was actually a viewer suggestion, which I always appreciate those. It's good inspiration for a topic. And, the talking about regret, one of those things where it's just like, well, you can't focus on it. You have to live in the now, right? But it's something that I know a lot of people struggle with, and they struggle with it maybe in different ways. This doesn't have to necessarily be the case, but one way that I felt was that when I was younger, what I regretted more was the things that I did. And then as I got older, the things I regretted more was the things I didn't do. And this is, a big focus about this is the regret of loss of time. And I just think about time too. I think about time and opportunity. When you're in your addiction and you're going about your life, I mean, not only, you'll hear a lot that you're not only not present, but you're in being that way, you miss out on things. I mean, if you think about your own life, how many opportunities, how many things that really changed course of the direction of your life were just a little opportunity, a little window that opened up, a door that opened up that really took things in a different trajectory. And if you're, under the influence, or you're just in the cycle of it, being in addiction isn't just about being high or drunk. It's just the mind that you have, just that tunnel vision. And so you'll miss a lot of doors that were open. And if you isolate a lot too, like I did, you don't make as many connections. A lot of things, regardless of what you do with life. I mean, I'm more of a creative type, so this one's big for me. But with really anything, you never know the one person that you'll meet that is going to be one of those people you look back on as like, I'm so glad I met that person. Not just in the sense of like they became a significant other or a best friend, but somebody that I worked with, and then I really was able to start reaching my goals because this person, whether it's encouragement or opportunity or what they did, they were able to help me out in some way. And again, when you're in the cycle of addiction, you're closed off. And then not only that, the obvious thing is that you're not working at full capacity. And for me too, you also don't really care as much. There's this sort of chemical apathy you get. You're out of it, and like I said, you either have the tunnel vision or you're in such a bad place or you have such low self-worth that you're not really pursuing things. And the funny thing is, so you get clean and sober, and now you have this, at least for me, I had this huge appetite for life. And with that being said, you think about all the stuff that, because a lot of those big endeavors, like the big carrots on your stick, the big goals in life, they take time. Whether it's getting an education, whether it's starting a career and having to work your way up, whether it's starting a family, whether, it's very rare. I mean, most things in life aren't like lottery tickets. It's very rare that there's huge things in life, like the huge endeavors that you take on, big things that just happen like that. As I always say, easy come, easy go. And so that loss of time, because here's one thing I'll say too. A lot of people naturally spend a lot of their time in addiction in the teens, late teens, early 20s, early 30s, stuff like that. And especially the late teens and 20s, those are such formative years. That's when a lot of people are building, the way just life kind of goes, that's when people are kind of building the foundation for their life. And don't get me wrong, this is hard for anybody to do. Some people build it on the wrong foundation, or some people are 10 years into a career and they're like, oh crap, I don't want to do this. So, I mean, the time is important, and, if you have unfinished goals, or you have new ones, or you have these pursuits that you have, the older you get, the more the clock you can feel it ticking. And so when you have that loss, when you just, I mean, there's so much loss in addiction, and not in a sense of, like, when it comes to time, they're just, God, I think about just the days, not the days I spent drunk, but just the days recovering, just days of nothing, either having to couch it through the withdrawals, where I just literally, I was just doing nothing, or time spent in the hospital or in jail or in prison, and you feel them more. You're like, oh God, all that time gone. And again, one thing when you look at this, and there's a lot of people I know who I feel for who maybe they were able to function longer in their addiction, and so they didn't get clean and sober until their 50s or 60s. And so now they're looking at it and they're like, my life is more than halfway over. And again, those formative years, it's too difficult to try to start a completely new career path and can't, I have the family I have, and maybe my kids are grown now, and I have my life now, and I've spent it traveling in this one direction where the whole time I was like, crap, guys, it was actually the other way. We've been going in the wrong direction the whole time. And, one thing that is, it's hard to deal with it is that, there's a cliche that time is like one thing you can't get back. But I would also argue that opportunities, the doors that were open that you missed or that you closed, the people you never ran into because you were so isolated, the pursuit you never did, again, because you just didn't have that energy or you didn't have the motivation, and the paths that you never started. And as you get older, it just feels so much harder to start them. And one thing that I try to, like, if you're much further in your life, or if it just feels that way, where you're like, oh, there's so much regret of what I didn't do or what I lost, I honestly try to think about it this way. And this is like a very, it's not just to make myself feel better. It's good to be optimistic, even carelessly optimistic, as long as you're being positive. But my brain tries to be more realistic, and so I think about things realistically and in a positive way. I try to merge those two. And so here's the thing. You meet with a lot of people where they are normal people or whatever. They haven't, had this huge life and past of addiction and problems and anything like that. And they've kind of done everything they quote-unquote wanted to do, and they hit midlife crises. They become stagnant. They feel lost. They become uninsured. And I think for myself is that, there's a very good chance that I could have got everything that I wanted, or pursued everything I did, or, tried out, at least you can't try out everything in life. Sometimes it takes a whole lifetime to get good at something, but I could have done all those things that I, regretted not doing, or used that time, and I could still be in this place where maybe I don't feel bad, but I feel just 50-50. 51%. That's the one thing I always say is good to shoot for. 51%. But I'm not like ecstatic. I'm not super, it's unrealistic to think that regardless of what past you have, that you're going to be just always great. Always 90%, 100%, whatever. And so when I think about that, and I feel pretty good where I'm at right now, and really that's actually all that matters. To highlight this even more, my great-grandpa, he was kind of an insane person. He, from his teens to well into his life, he drank whiskey. He was an alcoholic, and he just smoked cowboy killers all throughout his life. He still did that until the day he died, and he had kind of a tragic life in and of itself. And he got sober at the age of 80. It's almost like there's times where I think it's like, oh my God. At a certain point, it's just like, you never want to say it, but it's just like, really? You didn't just kind of keep going with it? I guess that would be to the bitter end. Now, again, like I said, he's an insane person, and he lived to like 92. But there was times I'd think about his life, and I'd be like, it seems like a wasted life, right? You didn't get sober, you lived in kind of that misery and chaos till you're 80. But here's the thing. It's not that when he was at 80 and the years after, and his life got a lot better, and he was more involved in family and everything like that. It was weird. I knew him till I was like, in high school and stuff. Kind of a weirdly young family in that sense. But it didn't matter to him, because it's not like he had to live those 80 years over again. He couldn't. And so all he was living at that time was where he was at the moment. And he was enjoying that. And in this real sense, I mean, you may have different ideas about existential things and the afterlife and what it all means and stuff, but in some sense, all that matters is where you're at right now. And so if you enjoy that, if you're satisfied, if you're content, you still have pursuits, you still have passions, you still have goals, but if you're content where you're at right now, that really is all that matters. And so maybe you're not. Maybe you're not because, again, the regrets you have the past that you didn't, you feel like you kind of fumbled the ball on your life, or you didn't like the way you played your cards. But where you're at right now, I don't want to say it's irrelevant, because I know I feel that regret deeply, and it's something I struggle with myself. But where you're at right now is all that matters. So what can you do about your life right now? And again, in some sense, let's say you kind of quote unquote got everything you wanted. Everything always kind of adjusts. Like goalposts always move, or one thing I talk about life is that then the way in addiction you normalize the bad things, you also normalize good things. And you kind of get used to stuff. That's why it's so important to try to actually practice gratitude. But you always kind of end up on sort of an even keel in a sense. And so really, where you're at now and what you're doing with your life right now is what really matters. Now, obviously, if you don't like what career you have, if you don't like where you're at, if you're just struggling super financially, if you spent a lot of years in prison and there's things like that you're dealing with, you're like, no, my life would like demonstratively be better if I didn't live the way I live, and that's why I regret how I am right now. That's another thing. I mean, that's a different type of animal to try to tame. But again, you could still use that like school of thought of, okay, I'm at where I'm at right now. And what can I do with what I have right now? And if you can get yourself to a place of contentment, then the past in some sense doesn't matter. It really doesn't in this way, because you don't, like I said, you don't have to live it again. It would be one thing if you had like a whole life that felt wasted to drugs and alcohol, and you're like, yeah, it's a sort of self-reincarnation where you just have to live your same life over and over again. You'd be like, oh, okay, well that sucks. That's not, I mean, we don't know how it goes, but that's not really, for sure, that's not how it is. We just kind of have what we have right now. And so, a big thought about, not just in recovery, but life in general, is just like, don't let the past ruin where you're at right now. Now, they also say, don't let the future ruin where you're at right now, because now is only where you can live. So if you can find a way, and if you work hard at it to get satisfaction, fulfillment, find meaning, find purpose, and meaning and purpose don't have to be these grand things. It could be something as simple and powerful as just being a better person, helping people. And so you don't want to be stuck looking in the rearview mirror, right? Isn't that the thing they always say? There's a reason the rearview mirror is smaller than the windshield, metaphorically speaking. And also, it would make it very weird to drive. But, yeah, I mean, if you're dealing with regretting the past, it's something, work through it with other people. But I work myself, what I try to do myself is just come to the realization that I don't have to live it again. And who knows where my life would have went if I would have got everything I want, or I would have lived, quote unquote, how I wanted to live. I feel pretty good right now, and there's a good chance that if I had that life, I'd be feeling pretty good right now. So or maybe worse, but in a sense, that's all that really matters.